Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. I am here again with Blake from Outcast Haven, and today we are talking Kassai. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again today. This is part 2 of our doubleheader with Blake. How's it going today, man?
It's great. Just talking fab. I couldn't be better.
Yeah, we're like 9 hours in on the chat. No, we've been here for a couple hours, but we're having a good time. So we were just talking in the break about your experience with Kassai. You had mentioned previously that you're a big Ranger player specifically for Blitz, and you said that you're heavy into Kassai. So bring us up to speed on what your deck looks like, how you enjoy playing her, your experience with her, and so on.
Yeah, so I've actually it's interesting because in Constructed, the main deck I play in Constructed is Dorinthea. I love Dorinthea and the play style, and I enjoy her in Blitz, but I actually really, really like Kassai. I love it kind of gives you the feels. I have a buddy who's a heavy ninja player, so Kodachi is seared into my brain forever. So I like going Saber because it just makes me feel good about the fact that I can kind of do it back to him, but I can reprise him to death. So I love Kassai. I think with her, it's interesting because it's a little different. I think you play her a little different than Dorinthea. I think Dorinthea I play a little more blue heavy because I think Dorinthea is able to threaten the counter. So because of that counter on the Dawnblade, I think people are more apt to block out against Dorinthea versus Kassai. So running a little more reds for the buffs is kind of how I lean in Kassai. So, and then obviously got to go heavy go again because she needs that second Saber attack being free it's too good not to take advantage of.
Sure. So, one of the questions I think a lot of people have on Kassai is she's obviously, and excuse the term because comparatively she's not, right? But she's the go wide warrior, right? I think is a fair way to say that. But how wide do you go with her, right? Is it still just a 2-attack focus, or do you try to sneak that Rabble or that Scar in before?
So that's definitely where I think sometimes I'm a little different than other people. So personally, I tend to just do the 2 attacks. My only attacks outside of my Sabers are actually 2 Flock of the Featherwalkers and 1 Drone of Brutality. Other than that, it's Saber heavy, it's go agains, and it's trying to just pop off the ability to push through damage off the reprise is kind of how I play her.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just your 2 weapon attacks. So then how does that change your cost profile, right? Because we all know that the typical warrior turn is 1 for a setup, 1 to swing, and then 1 floating for an attack, react, or to swing again. Now, granted, with Kassai, you don't have to pay for the second swing, which is important, right? But
yeah.
So how does that change your cost curve? Are you primarily 2s instead of 3s in terms of pitch? How does that work out?
So I built it. It's pretty red focused because of that. I run basically reds and blues. I only have 5 yellow pitch. Otherwise, it's just 23 reds and 12 blues. I run some reds that I think probably aren't people's go-tos.
Like spoils
I just want to be able to,
because nobody plays that.
Yeah,
one.
I mean, yeah, nobody plays Spoils of War. It's too bad. You just can't put it in the deck. But I run a red overpower just because I think people do math. And it's all because I think so. I talked to a buddy of mine who plays actually over in Australia. We met some Australia guys that we play with pretty regularly, and he made the point that I think math is often done in Warrior in chunks of 3, and sometimes when you go to Kassai, because her sabers are 2, people are like, oh well, that's different. The issue is when you block with an attack action, it's still a 3 attack, right? So it's basically a Dawnblade, because it becomes the 3, and people still do the post and pre-math as 3s because most of what Warrior buffs by is 3. So people do the 3 math, and a lot of people will run like the blue overpower to try and push damage over in Dorinthea, because I run 3 blue overpowers in my Dorinthea constructed build because I think people go, you're swinging for 3, I'll block 6 because I'm not going to let you hit me that second time and get the counter, and you go, cool, blue overpower, I pushed over the top of it by 1. But I think in Blitz, because you're dealing with smaller health pools, I run 1 red overpower because of that, where I want to be able to go, oh cool, you blocked for 6, sounds good, I'm still going to push 3. Like I'm going to push way over the top, and then I'm going to swing with the second Saber and see what you have to do about that, because I just want to push damage like early and often, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you don't really have much of a choice in Blitz. It kind of has to be early, right? But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't found too much of an issue with using her sabers at the 2 versus the 3. I mean, we all know that 3 is a very important number, but 2 versus 3 is basically the same number in this game, right? Because it's still a card. Now, 1 versus 2...
It still costs a card. The only difference is...
Oh, I was just going to say, 1 versus 2 is a very different argument, because a lot of times they'll just take the 1, right? But
right, yeah.
Go ahead and finish.
The 2 versus 3, the only difference there is really the fact that they because it changes based on how to block, sometimes mess with their hand if they can't afford the damage. But because she doesn't get a benefit off the hit, a lot of times it doesn't really change their effect. If she had like a Dawnblade effect, it'd be totally different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, but Dawnblade going to 4 completely changes everything, right? And I think that's the point. So
yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we already talked some of the key cards like Spoils of War. The card I'm curious about on how much you use it, where it stands in your deck, is Warrior's Valor, right? I mean, that's the Warrior bread and butter, but in Kassai, not necessarily. So how does that fit into your overall strategy?
This may be one of those things where I have to tell Warrior players to sit down before you listen to this, but I run 1 red Warrior's Valor, and that's it for Warrior's Valor.
Really?
In the deck.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I've seen people play 3 of the blue in Kassai. I think people prefer the blue in Kassai just because it does what it wants. But then again, you have hit and run, which I assume you're playing 9 of, right?
Yep. Hit and run is packed to the it's 2 of each because it's just too good not to run.
Sorry, I said 9 of. Sorry, full up 6 of. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that like I basically opted out of Warrior's Valor and into Flock of the Featherwalkers, which I've actually considered running in yellow too, because it sets up a second turn, or sometimes just takes the place of the second Saber as a bigger attack. Because people with Kassai, if you go, Saber, you can you get that false sense of security, where it's like playing Ira, where they're like Kadachi for 1, Kadachi for 2, and then they do a big attack, and then every now and then they go Kadachi for 1, Command and Conquer for 7. You're like, hold on, wait a minute now, and it kind of throws people for a second. And Flock giving the next turn go again, basically giving you your free go again, is sometimes worth burning your go again on the second Saber, because you don't get the buff by hitting with the Saber, so you can hit and run in with then swing with your Saber, and then with that extra resource that sometimes you just have, you just drop Flock of the Featherwalkers. You're like 5, and all of a sudden that that 2 that they were expecting from that Saber with maybe the buff just becomes 5 up front, and now they're thinking to themselves like, oh no, does he run Razor Reflex? Because that would be a devastating 8 to take, to almost chew half my health if I don't block this one.
And in that case, you're referring to that because of the no reprise, right? Just to clear it up for everybody.
Yeah, because it doesn't have, because you don't have the reprise effect. The Flock is kind of just like, this is what it is, and I can't run, I can't reprise it, but I can definitely throw a Razor on it.
Right. Yeah. So a card that I've had some fun with in that deck, and it's a little unorthodox, so I was curious on your stance on it. What do you think about Snatch?
So it's interesting because that's actually a card I also have considered, and I think the only reason I run Flock is because of the Quicken token that it creates. That it basically gives you the go again for your next turn, which is great. But Snatch is a card that I run in. So I've played Ira casually just because Ira's good. So I like playing decks to get a familiarity with them too, and Snatch is so good in Ira that it's hard to ignore it in most builds. And I think the mistake hit and run you can make sometimes with playing with it is kind of locking it in your brain that you only get go again if like your Saber is your second swing. Like I think mentally sometimes you're just like Saber, 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 Saber. And not taking advantage of the fact that it's just go again. You can do whatever you want with your go again. And I like the idea of Snatch only because I know for me personally and playing into Warrior whenever I do, the scariest thing in Warrior is when they swing with something, you look over or you ask, and then you say, how many cards do you have? And they're like, I have 2 in my hand, 1 in my arsenal, 1 floating. It is the absolute worst feeling in the world because now you're sitting there thinking to yourself, do I even block? Because if I block it, I just open a door to I open Pandora's box when I block into Warrior. So like giving the opportunity to get them to over block it and then just going, hey, cool, Snatch, and making them block or let you draw a card and then getting an arsenal back is a really good idea that I've thought about, but I've never actually put in the deck.
I mean, it's done well for me. Side note, while we're on Snatch, the blue Snatch with Benji is actually not crap either. But
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So next question then. Courage or Tunic?
So for me, it's totally matchup dependent. I have both in the loadout because I think if I'm running, so I don't run Twinning Blade in mine, and that's the reason that I don't think I would run Courage of Blade Hold unless I wanted to use the effect to be able to get like a third attack in with the sword, because just discounting 1 because her second one is already free, it kind of feels bad that you're basically just popping it for 1 resource. So typically I run Courage of Blade Hold into Ira or Ninja in general because of that. Oftentimes that like conditional go again that they'll have on that third attack after their Kodachis. And it's funny because Jason got an opportunity to interview Jordan, who finished 3rd at the Calling. And I think his description of what happens when you put Courage of Blade Hold into Warrior is great. And he said the loadout for Warrior, they call it over in New Zealand, they call it the fridge. Like when somebody throws a big attack, they just put the fridge in front of it and they keep their hand. Because if you're running Arcanite Skullcap and you're on lower health, you can block for 7 with your armor when you have Courage of Blade Hold in, which is absurd. Like blocking for 7 with no cards from hand is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. Like throwing the fridge in front of it is crazy.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. And then, but Courage, I'll have to pull that up. Doesn't Courage break on the 2?
So it has temper. So when it gets the what's it called? Yeah.
I think it breaks, right? Hold on, I'll pull it. Sorry, I'll have it on the screen on the edit. Temper. If you defend, put a -1. Oh, it just right if it has
when it
0.
Gets to 0.
Oh, it's instant. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, so that's fine then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine then.
Yes, you can block with Courage of Blade Hold and then still pop it off if you want, or you can save it into matchups that swing heavy or put a lot of 1 pressure on like Ninja and actually use it to block a Kodachi and just use it all for block value if you want. But between Courage of Blade Hold bracers and with your Refraction Bolters, and then if you have Arcanite Skullcap and you have less health, you can block for 7. So you can basically take like an Ira, if Ira throws a Command and Conquer for 7 at you with the effect on their second attack, you can block it all with equipment if you haven't used it yet. Which is absurd.
That's interesting. And they call it the fridge, huh? Okay.
They call it the fridge. Yeah, he said when Ira goes after the arsenal, they just throw the fridge in front of it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's the. I actually got lucky. I pulled a skull cap recently, so I'm sitting good there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had to buy mine. That hurt.
yeah, fair enough.
That's painful.
I mean, it's a rainbow one and not a cold one, but you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. So,
I don't care how it shines.
Right. So okay, cool. Well, any other spicy tech that you're willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too attached. I'm not playing in a calling anytime soon, so I'm pretty open with my deck tech. I run 2 Steelblade Shunt in mine, but I only run blues
Oh,
because
blue. Okay.
yeah, I run 2 blue Steelblades only because the 4 is usually enough for that reaction to basically block anything I need to block, but it doubles into wizard because that's been the biggest thing right now is like I've said, I actually have one advantage is I think wizard is one of the hardest matchups for most decks to tech against for players who don't play a lot because chances are you either don't see wizard or you probably see like below average wizard because wizard is so hard to play and a lot of people haven't gotten enough reps with it that they play it efficiently. And I'll pat Jason, my my teammate, my fellow channel content creator, on the back. He has invested basically his heart and soul into Kano in Blitz, and I think it's a really hard matchup for a lot of decks. So teching in Steelblade Shunt is huge because it can also win you some games when somebody just casually. I think people forget about the card and casually will swing with a weapon late game when it's their only option. They're just sitting on 1 health and they're trying to ping you to death, and you go, cool, pay 1 Steelblade Shunt, you die, I win. Congratulations, GG.
Yeah. So I actually run that. I run at a 2-pitch, but your argument your argument on the 3-pitch is actually pretty solid. So maybe I need to reevaluate. I mean, it's the only reason I was running at 2-pitch is if you just look at Kassai's cost curve, it's 1 less than Dorinthea's, right? So the majority of my 3s moved to 2s, but you have a fair point because 3 is an important. 3-pitch is important. That's fair.
Yeah, it's the reality of living in a wizard's world, and I think that's sometimes and that's something that I think will change honestly with metas, and that's the thing I'm most excited for as the game is played more in the States and we have more opportunity to play is to see how different our stateside, how our state metas, local metas are, because in my local we don't just have Jason, but we actually have another guy who's a pretty devout wizard player. So, I know I'm gonna see wizard a lot, whereas somebody else might play where they literally have never played against a wizard. So it makes a huge difference in your deck tech. But I think if you're just deck teching based on like what happened at the calling in New Zealand, you're deck teching for I run Kano because they're firm believers in those 2 being the best blitz decks.
Yeah, well, and then if you're doing that, then you're 1 behind anyway, because we all saw what happened at Blitzathon, which was everybody thought Ira was going to win, and Kayo came out, and then everybody teched Kayo, and then Ira came out, right? So, yeah, you're 1 behind the game in that case. So,
right.
All right, so that's a really good piece of advice that I'm probably going to go change like right now. What else do you have?
In the deck, I run, a lot of the standard Kassai cards. I run 2 Cashin, which is actually something I just upped recently, only because I'm a stickler about 3 blocks in my deck. So like running the flock and the drone was kind of, it made me less apt to play two Cashins versus 1. But I run 1 red drone of brutality only for fatigue games. I've considered playing 1 red, 1 blue, just because I think in fatigue games it can be a really good card. I think that's something that Ira does. Is I think Warrior can play fatigue really well because you are really efficient with your weapons and you have 2 in Kassai. So running the drones allows you to use them into Ira to block that second Kodachi that they use a lot of times, where they'll Kodachi for 2, you block with drone, it just goes to the bottom of your deck and lets you cycle it back. And then late game, the red one specifically allows for a really big swing. Like if you just happen to do both your drones, or you bottom deck both your drones and you can keep pitching them closer together, there's a chance that 1 turn hit and run into a Saber, and then your second attack is just a red drone of brutality, and you just come at them for 6. And in late game, when people are fatiguing, it's a really strong, swing of tempo.
Yeah, drone. I can't speak highly enough about drone. Like drone won me a draft, early on. I mean, greater than a year ago because that was the last time we played in person, right? But drone won me a draft because I was playing Dorinthea, and it's just the I'll block, I'll pitch and swing, and at some point you realize mathematically it's easier for you to just try and deck them, right? So that's a good point. You
just play the fatigue game.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And then the only other stuff that I think I run, I don't know how many Kassai lists run Route, but I think Route is just like is that card that just wins in Warrior sometimes when people get greedy late game, and I think that's huge for the deck. Is people will get greedy late. It's interesting because a lot of times, from my experience, is into Warrior people are very mindful of blocking early and they'll overblock because they're concerned about reprise. So they're protecting against reprise. And then late game, they'll start to do their math and realize at some point they need to have a big turn. So they will maybe just block value, and they'll say, okay, I'll block one with one card, and that's it. I'm just going to block, and I'm going to hope you don't reprise and win. Or they do the math, right? And they say, okay, I'll block with one card because if you reprise for 3, I don't die. And there's no way for you to effectively kill me unless you have like double Iron Song response or something that's 0 cost. So then when you can pay 2 with the cards in your hand, when you can pitch something to pay for the route to remove the card that they blocked with and buff by 3, you effectively get double Iron Song late game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
so
that's
I love route.
Yeah,
but I only run it as a 1 of.
Well, no, I think that's the right way. One or me. Well, I mean in Blitz, I was gonna say or maybe 2 of, but no, yeah, you run it 1 of, because I want to caution people who are maybe not super proficient at Warrior. Route is a very tempting card to use, but it kind of falls into that. In the last episode that Blake and I did, we were talking about the other side of Dominate, which is they only get to play 1 card and then they come at you at full force. And Route is kind of the same thing. Like you have to have a fair amount to pull Route off, and then they actually get that card back. So it's one of those things where you need to make them. You need to make sure that you're putting them pretty close to down with Route. Otherwise, you're gonna pay for it. So that's my advice there.
I think Route's a big card, and the only other card that I am pretty high on in the deck that I run kind of it's not a weird ratio, but it's one that I took a blue out for the red drone was I run 2 red Dauntless and 1 blue Dauntless.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think sometimes people will do the math on their turns where they're using a free defense reaction or a 1-cost defense reaction for a big block in order to go into their next turn with the 2 cards or the 3 cards that they really need to win the game, and turning their defense reaction up a notch and costing them that extra resource. It can really tempo the game in your favor late when they either take a big amount, they take a big amount of damage, or they lose an extra card from hand because they're now all of a sudden they can't pay for, with 1 red card, they can't pay for that 1-cost defense reaction, or with they had the 0-cost defense reaction that now costs 1. So it puts them in a weird spot where they have to make it's a decision point that hopefully messes up their tempo and puts it back in your favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting card. I remember when it first came out, I did a Kassai deck tech, and it was a relatively low profile. And one of the gentlemen from across the Pacific Pond, they basically said, just a note, usually stuff like that is diminishing returns on red, meaning that you should generally skew towards the blue on a card like that, because the 3 doesn't, in terms of cards, like we talk about 3 being an important number, the 1 is just as good in most cases as the 3. And what you're after is the effect anyway. So that's good advice there. But so you're saying you run 2 reds and 1 blue, is what you're saying?
Yeah. And I only run it because, and I run it in Blitz. Like I actually don't. So I have it in Dorinthea, but it doesn't often get cited in Constructed, only because people tend to block more, I think, in Constructed, and they tend to run. It's harder to run into your defense reactions consistently. And I think specifically into Ninja, you run into the fact that like they flick flack, right? Like flick flack is just backbreaking when they just now make those combo cards just so much more efficient at blocking, and making flick flack cost 1 now says, cool, well you blue flick flacked me for 2. Congratulations. Now your combo block that was, that you thought was, it's like now your flick flack is 1. So now you're no longer blocking for free. So now it's not going to cost you 2 cards. It's going to cost you 3 cards, and it can buy you a lot. And just the buff for 3 and then potentially reprising on top of it makes it for just such a huge tempo swing where now you're pulling a bunch of cards from them, and you're also threatening a lot of damage if they don't do something about it.
Yeah. I do wonder if that's not more of a Dorinthea strategy, to make them really debate whether or not they want to block your counter. But I see what you're picking up, or I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I mean, I think that's it. My spice is definitely, and I don't know how spicy it is, but my leaning towards like Flock of the Featherwalkers and the potential of even adding more, just because that quicken token is, it's I think personally I like, and this again may sound crazy as a warrior player, but I have liked my experience with Flock of the Featherwalkers better than Warrior's Valor, only because in Kassai specifically, you're setting up your next turn by giving up your second attack of a 2 Saber for like a 5 attack red Flock of the Featherwalkers, and then giving yourself go again next turn, so you can potentially arsenal a hit and run or use the buff on a hit and run. Because I had a perfect example of an occurrence the other day. Was I played Flock of the Featherwalkers to give myself the quicken token next turn with a red hit and run in hand. Now I no longer had to use that hit and run just to get go again the next turn. I got to use it the second one to give my second Saber go again, which didn't really matter, but it gave my second Saber a +3. So now like I made my next turn better by playing a 5 attack card the turn before, which in and of itself costed them 2 cards to block, or they blocked with 1 card and took 2 or 3 damage.
Sure.
So it ended up like it gives a little bit of setup to the deck that the deck doesn't otherwise have. And Warrior's Valor being conditional can hurt sometimes because people just opt to block it all and they don't have to deal with the second Saber. They kind of know what's coming that way.
Sure. Yeah, it's almost like a net, but it costs you 1 more. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
So I do think the Blitzathon top 8 Warrior deck, I think it was running Flock, wasn't it? Yeah,
was
I think it was.
I'm not 100% sure.
I think it was, and I think I remember thinking that was a spicy include. So maybe you're on the spice. So sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hope so.
All right. Well, you've joined us for this. So this is the second of the doubleheader. So why don't you take a sec and tell us about your guys' channel over there at Outcast Haven? I'll throw the logo across the screen. Tell us about yourselves, what you guys do, and where people can find you.
Yeah, so we have been covering Fab since we got involved in the game. We really always loved the amount of value that content creators can give back to the community was something that always meant a lot to us in other games we played. So we just wanted to do that back to the Fab community as a young community. And we play another game, Dragon Ball Super, as well. We're kind of split down the team between people who play both games. And we do a lot of content for Fab that's focused around, we do a lot of gameplay. We have a weekly or a bi-weekly podcast, and then we have been trying to do some deck techs because I know as new players come into the game, it's important to talk through decks and stuff. So Jason and Dane and myself have been doing that for a while now. I actually don't even remember when our first video came out, but we love it. And we're over on YouTube at youtube.com/outcasthaven. If you want to come check it out, we do that. And then on Tuesday nights, we do a live stream on TTS. We go live at 9:30 p.m. Central Time, and we typically play for like 3 hours. And we've been doing some UPF lately and having guests on and stuff. So it's been a really good time, and we're really excited about Fab going forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's an understatement. I think everybody's excited about Fab. It's picking up steam like something I've never seen before this late in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right, well, great. Thanks very much I know we've been going at it for a couple hours now, so I really appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah.
For those of you out there watching, I just want to remind everybody that I get my product from my LGS, which is Gongai Games. They, of course, have code Commando10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase of anything at the store. So go ahead and give those guys a checkout. And then my good buddy over at Fab Foundry with all of your singles needs. And actually, if you use the link below, I actually get a small kickback, so it helps support the channel as well. So with that said, I want to remind everybody, if you found us coming from Outcast, so obviously we do the stuff back and forth. Go check them out. If you found me, make sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. The thing we love most is the discussion and great discussion from the community. So I just want to, again, Blake, thank you very much for not only having me on a couple weeks ago, but taking your time tonight. Any parting words?
No, I just appreciate you and what you've always done for the gaming community and what your channel has done for me personally. I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, that was thanks for joining me. And I always appreciate the kind words. As you well know, being a content creator, a lot more work goes in than just the 15, 20 minutes that we talk to everybody per week, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. So all right. Well, thank you very much. Make sure to check this guy and his friends out. They're really good guys, and they have a really good thing going over there. So if nothing else, guys, and Blake, you got to say it this time, go Commando.
Go Commando.